Hello and welcome. So we have ourselves a circle here, various lengths, not lengths, various angle measures, right, and arc measures, and then we have a lot of stuff to find. So first off, let's review central and inscribed angles. Central angle, angle formed at the center of the circle, right, and the arc that it creates is equal in measure. So if the arc has a measure of, say, 20 degrees, the central angle is also 20 degrees. All right, the inscribed angle is the other version where you have some point on the circle, right? And that point we have an angle being formed there, so that would be your inscribed angle, right? And the arc it creates is double that of the angle. So if you have an angle of 20 degrees, the arc is 40 degrees. Or vice versa, if you have the arc is 40, then half of that is the angle, right? So 40, half of it, 20, right? 20 degree for the angle. Alrighty. So let's look at this. So first off, when we're looking at this, let's just fill in the information we are given. So the angle from CDA, which will be this little section right there, is 111.5 degrees. All right. Then we have the measure of arc A to B. All right. So AB right there, that'll be 51 degrees. Then we have the measure of arc DC, which will be that one right down there. We're told that one is 24 degrees. All right, so now let's work with what we got. So first off, 115 degrees, angle at that inscribed angle of D. Now we know this is an inscribed angle because D is a point on the circle. It's not central, it's a point on the circle. So if we're looking at this, if we follow the two segments that create the angle, that means that this whole section right here is the arc for that inscribed angle of D. So remember, we have the double half relationship. So if the angle is 20, the arc is 40, right? We double it. So if the angle is 115, all we have to do is we say, okay, 115 degrees. Sorry, I keep saying 115. 111.5, and if we double that, we end up at 223 degrees, and that is the entire section of that arc there. Now, what we need is not the entire section of the arc. Specifically, we already know that part of that is 151 degrees. What we need to know is we need to know the other section of that arc. Where I'd say, okay, well, if the whole thing is 223 and part of it is 151, well, to find the remaining amount, all we have to do is we just take the whole 223 and we take out the part we already know, and that will leave how much is remaining. In other words, 72 degrees is going to be the measure of that arc. Okay, and now that's really important because now we have 3 of our 4 arcs, right? We already know this bottom section is 24, so the only thing left to find is this arc over here. Well, how can we do that? As we're looking at it, we'd say, okay, well, think about it. We know the yellow, the blue, and the purple. Well, isn't that most of the circle? Right? That is every arc except the one we need. Right? So we know the entire circle is 360. And from there, if we just take out the arcs we already know, the 151, the yellow arc, the blue arc, 72, and the purple arc, 24, then that leaves our remaining arc. And that is how we can find the last one. So 151, let's try this again. 360 minus 151 minus 72 minus 24. And when we subtract all those together, we end up with 113 degrees. And now we know every arc measure, which is awesome because now the only thing left is to find the angles. Well, the angles aren't too bad because all of them, you'll notice that angle B, A, and C, they're all inscribed angles. All right, which means that if we were to find angle C, why not? Okay, if we wanted to find angle C, let me follow this out, follow that out. That's what forms the angles. Connect the two together. That is the arc formed by angle C. We know angle C is then a sum, the addition of 113 and 151. And that is the arc from BAD, right? All those three together, and we get 264. That whole thing is 264. And we know that in order to, if we know the arc is 264, we know the angle has to be half of that. So half of 264, 132. And there is our angle of C. Alright, so let's get rid of some of these highlights. They're making it a little confusing. Don't want to confuse you guys. Alright, so as we keep going from here, then I'd say, okay, what if we want to find angle B? Well, follow out the two segments, connect the arcs together, and you notice that for that angle, well, it's going to be the two arcs of 113 and 24. So if we add 113 and 24, that is the arc that we need. Well, the angle is just going to be half of that. So if we do 113 plus 24, we get 137, right? So then in 137, and we take, whoops, is that right, 2? And we take half of that, we'll end up getting a decimal. That's okay. That's 68.5, and that will be the angle. Okay? And then we have one last, but most certainly not least, right? We have one last thing for us to find, and that is the angle at A. So if we look at this, we'd say, okay, follow A, it segments out, connect the arcs together. That means we're looking at 24 and 72 combined. So 24 plus 72, 96, half of 96, 48 degrees. And there you go. That is all of our angles, all of our arcs, and now you're good to answer any and every question that you're good to go. If you want to go through and answer the questions before you finish the whole circle, you're welcome to. Okay, so the arc from B to C. We found that section, right? That's this arc right there. We said it was 72 degrees. All right, the next one we need to find is the arc from A to D. We've done that. That's 113. All right, now as we keep it running, the angle from DAB. So DAB, that's this angle right there, 48 degrees. Okay, as we keep it running, we have ABC, this angle right there, 68.5 degrees. Okay, keep running down that line, we have BCD right there, 132 degrees. We already found that. And then we keep going with BDA. So BDA, and notice that this notation is an arc, not an angle. So we start at B, we go to D, and then we end at A. Have to go in that order. So B, D, A, that direction, you'll notice is the major arc. So all we do from there is we say, okay, well, we could add the first portion of that arc together, the 72, to the 24 to the 113. So 72 plus 24 plus 113. You'll get the answer that way. Or you could say, hey, that's every arc except that one. So you could say, what if we take the whole circle and we just take out the one arc that we know we don't need, the 151. Okay, either way, when we do this, you're going to get the same answer of 209 degrees. And that's it. You're finished. That's as crazy as it gets. Now keep in mind this does say round to the third decimal place if needed. We didn't have to round on any of these decimals, right? That didn't go out to the third place. So don't worry too much about rounding on this one. You generally, okay, correction, you won't need to. But those instructions, that's what they mean. Okay? Alrighty, thanks for watching.